Hi, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for your support here on Facebook and the other channels in which I've got platforms I have. I'd like for you to go over there and visit those platforms also. RSS.com, Spotify for podcasters, and Rumble, and also SoundCloud, LinkedIn, if you're on LinkedIn, also Twitter, X now, and Instagram and TikTok. I'm on there with shorts sometimes. So check those platforms out also. And like I said, you're listening to Dave Emmons in A Strange Reality. And my guest today, he's been around for a while and researching for a while, and he's got three books that we're going to talk about. And he's a gentleman who sticks to his what he's doing, his research, and he's compiled quite a bit of research. And his name is Ron Morehead. He has been known for decades for his worldwide research into the Bigfoot Sasquatch phenomena. He is an author, researcher, lecturer, experiencer, and producer of the renowned Sierra Sounds. We'll need to talk about that. To date, he comes closer than any other researcher to having a complete body of evidence. Besides being the keynote speaker at many conventions, he has been featured on countless radio programs and TV documentaries, such as the Learning Channel and the Travel Channel. And Ron Morehead, thank you so much for coming on the show. And could you tell us a little bit of what's going on with you now, Ron?
Well, thank you, Dave, for that introduction. I appreciate that. Yeah, I'm home talking to you, and that's a good thing. Uh, yeah, I've been researching this for 50 some odd years. I'm responsible for producing the Sierra Sounds, which are Bigfoot recordings, which were recorded in the Sierra Mountains of California in 1971 through 74, 76, right there. And they've been scientifically studied to show they were legitimate by Professor Curran at the University of Wyoming. And he showed that they were inside, outside the language of Bigfoot, really. The ones we encounter in the Sierras have a language.
Right. Did you find that, Ron, did you find that a lot of them are grunts? They make out these grunts, and sometimes they sound like bears that'll growl or grunt, and then you hear this whooping sound, whoop, whoop, whoop. What
Yeah,
sounds are really that you've heard quite a bit of in your research?
all of the above. Yeah, but the biggest thing is the language. They have a language by the human definition language.
Okay.
Very complex language according to crypto language in the Navy. And you find that Dr. Curran at the University of Wyoming said represented an animal very tall. And in the crypto language says it's a language by the definition of language. He heard not interview this by got the original report into put it into it himself, and he had come back and said they have a very complex language, very fast, very rapid talking, very unique. And he's a two-time graduate of the Language Institute of Technology, the DoD now in Monterey, California. And I vetted him thoroughly, so he knows what he's talking about. Dr. Curran's wrote over 100 papers.
Mhm.
So, and he presented his findings in a book called A Man Like Monsters on Trial, printed by the UCB Press, 1980. And from Dr. Philip Lieberman, cognitive researcher from Brown University. And he says only humans, only humans, only humans have the vocal mechanism for language. These things have a language. These the ones we turn into have a language.
Well,
So that puts
don't the whales and dolphins also have
well,
a
well,
particular
they
language?
have their way of communicating. But I'm talking about language by the human definition, which means that
Okay.
talking in sentence like I'm talking now. No, everything communicates. Everything does. But nothing communicates with language, according to Dr. Lieberman, except humans. He's a, like I said, cognitive science professor at the Brown University, which he passed away years ago.
Mhm.
But only humans are supposed to have that. So when you put all those three things together, Dr. Curlin, Scott Nelson, cryptolinguist from the Navy, who was designed and who was trained to do nothing but decipher codes and languages, unknown languages, and see if there's any meaning to them. And so got him, then you got Dr. Lieberman. So those three bullet points right there puts it in the category of having a human on it to them. So it takes me way back. And the Bigfoot thing started with me in 1971 when I was in a group, involved with a group of hunters. There way back, it was about 8 miles in the wilderness, and about 8,400 feet in elevation, and very imposing area to get to. Nobody's around there except us. Once you get to it, it's pretty nice. And so we started encountering these things, and we started going back to tape recorders. It wasn't until 1972, the winter of 1972, Warren Johnson, the leader of our group, he wrote a 23-page letter to Ivan Sanderson, cryptolinguist, a cryptozoologist student. And he thought it was probably somebody pulling his leg, but then he thought, well, maybe there's something to it. So he sent it out to a man named Peter Byrne, who was on the West Coast. Peter later on became a good friend of mine, but he also thought it was probably somebody pulling his leg. Because it was encounters like we had, multiple encounters don't happen, like very few, especially ones that were able to record. But Peter sent it to a guy named Alan Berry in California, and Alan Berry worked in the radio at the time. He remember I interviewed these guys said there's anything to it, but we think it's a hoax. I didn't know anybody thought it was a hoax until later on when I read the correspondence between Albert showing the files. And anyway, Albert, we took him in 1972, and he started encountering just like we did, kind of like Bigfoot, massive. But we didn't know what we did. We were not Bigfoot hunters. We were not there to hunt Bigfoot. The hunting camp, deer hunting camp, there, and but it wasn't. Johnson Brothers has been going there since 1958, and when they first encountered them in early 1971, they thought first it was a bear, but they realized bears don't make this kind of noise, and chattered amongst themselves out there and tearing up the camp a little bit. So they went out there later on when all the commotion stopped and saw this huge track, 5-foot track there. So we're dealing with something else here. We don't know what it is, but it's kind of a monster. So they stuck through the night, left out, and then after that, and then told the other guys, which were 3 more of them, they all went back up with the and started trying to see if this thing would come back. This thing, and they did. One of the guys, the first night, he just got really freaked out. All the guys were very religious, especially this one guy. He just didn't know where to put this in his paradigm. He didn't have, Nephilim and the giants of the old are not supposed to be around anymore, but these things are around, and they heard them, frightening a lot. So he left out, let them know, and he got back down the valley where we were all. I was friends with them all the time, but I went to hunt him. And the lions were worried because men didn't come out today. They were supposed to come out, and they said, "Donald, you got to go back and see if they're okay. If they got eaten or carried away by these monsters." Or what's come up. And Donald said, "Well, it is up there. It's some kind of a monster. We don't know what it is. Huge." And he said, "I'll go back, but somebody's got to go with me. I won't go back by myself." So he took me up there, and that's how I got involved. That was 1971. And we started going back. I started going back as often as I could after that. Try to learn more experience. It was kind of exciting to me. And didn't know where to put it, but I was raised belonged to a huge church there. Bill and I did both through my packing buddy back then, was up there later on. But anyway, he and I started checking up his office. Somebody go with me, and started recording these things. But in 1972 is when we took Alan Berry in, and he started running the same thing, like I mentioned. He's the one that fostered the studies, actually, at the University of Wyoming, to see if they were legitimate. He was still trying to see if they were like hoaxing it. He had a master's in science, and he just it's too phenomenal for not to check it out. We didn't realize how phenomenal it was. I didn't have any idea.
Yeah, Ron, could I stop and talk to you about your sound? It kind of sounds like it's a kind of growly and deep sound. You have a it's kind of hard to
sorry.
some of the words
that check that out better. Let me check my sound, see if I got it on the right microphone. I got several microphones.
Yeah, it just may be that you're talking low.
And I do talk low. I'm trying to talk slower and more clearly, like John Wayne did. or something
Yeah.
else.
Yeah, that would be better, slow, more clear so that people can understand, because what you're talking about is a lot of interesting information. And this Bigfoot research studies have, they've been worldwide, and you've got information here, and the talking. I've heard that talk, I heard that mentioned before by investigators, that they do have a language and they talk to each other, and they can actually mimic humans' language when they're
Yeah.
around. Have you experienced any of that, Ron?
Yes, that's what the recording's all
Yeah.
about. Yeah, they can mimic anything pretty much. They have a vocal range which is superior to humans. Go above our range, go inside our range, and below our range.
Yeah.
Dr. Curl explains all that in his long study, and it shows it in the book too that I mentioned earlier. But yeah, that gives them an aptitude. I think they will mimic just about anything.
It, yeah, and also I've heard this guttural sound. It's a low vibration,
Mhm.
ultrasound or something like that, that they put out, that can actually, I guess, paralyze people or make them freeze in place. That's some sort of a you know frequency that they can
Well, it's infrasound, and that's
sound. Yeah.
below our range of hearing. It can affect you though, so you won't hear it, but it will affect you. And that's been known. And big animals do that, elephants do that, giraffes do that, large tigers do that. I have no doubt that these things can do that too. I've
Yeah.
been paralyzed up there. Several strange things have happened to us up there. That was one of them. When went outside the shelter to see if we could spot one of these things, but making noise. And Warren Johnson walked up to the tree where we thought it was bad, thought thinking we'd see it run away, but it didn't run away, and we both got froze, just like force field, like described in my first book.
Hmm.
And just paralyzing effect that you can't go forward anymore. And we couldn't. When we turn around and go backward, we couldn't go forward. So
Yeah.
that's just something that I thought that was interesting. I brought it up to science later on here.
Now
I
let's
said
talk.
probably,
Yeah, let's talk about that first book. The Sierra Sounds are the only Bigfoot recordings that have been scientifically studied, time tested, and accredited as genuine. Ron has documented his personal interactions with these giant beings and produced his story on a CD and also in a book, Voices in the Wilderness, and that's on Amazon. That's the book you're talking about. That's where that's your first book where you started finding out about the Bigfoot can talk to each other and relate to each other. Is that right, Ron?
that's my chronicle.
Yeah.
And it comes with a download of sounds. You can hear the sound I'm talking about when I get to it. So it's
Yeah.
pretty,
So you personally talked, you had a conversation with
I
it?
don't know what they were saying, but I was yelling back at them.
Really?
Yeah, and that's what's known as samurai cry. You know, I looked tonight, I saw one too, and we were outside the shelter. Normally they wouldn't interact with us until we got inside the shelter. But this night, just Bill McGowan and I, because of my packing buddy, with the horses and mules, we took supplies into the camp, and they started popping rocks and whooping back and forth. And from previous years, this wasn't in 1974 when this happened. And we've been dealing with these things since 71. So we kind of knew what to do and what not to do when we heard their signs and telltale signs. It's not right there. They do rhythmically tapping on trees, knocking on trees, I should say. And then they'll whoop, but if you just ignore them like we did, they will start coming in closer to see if they got your attention. And that's when they started talking to each other, jabbering back and forth outside while we were outside. Couldn't see them from about 75 yards away, but then a big samurai cry came up behind me, and so that's when I saw one run down through the trees to over it with two other ones, and that less than that female.
Hmm.
And we got all this recorded, and that's what I used on my second CD. And so
So
it's
they don't talk through the guttural sounds that I just mentioned a while ago, the infrasound. They don't communicate through that, but they communicate through their mouth and their
well, we
voice.
don't know because you don't hear infrasound. I think they communicate with infrasound. I think they can, but they were talking through our hearing range, our frequency. Or we didn't know anything about infrasound then. I didn't. We were just hunters and just from the area. But as far as their guttural sounds, that's something you won't hear if it is infrasound. The guttural sounds is a range, otherwise you would hear it.
Now
it's
they,
like a,
yeah, now they knock on trees. You mentioned that, and I've seen that in plenty of investigations that you can knock like 3 times and they'll knock back. Is that a form of communication that is
I
just
think it's their form, yeah, because they do it in really pretty fashion. Yeah, when I got that recorded too, knocking. And I think that's what they do when they want to signal one to the other one without vocalizing, or they move, I think, different intonations to that. And that's really the rock typing too. Got all that last second CD, Bigfoot voices. And anyway, it's all downloadable on my website too.
okay? And
Rather
yeah, we'll I'll have your website and your books in the narrative whenever I post the video. Uh, and also you can mention it now if you want to, your website.
Well, it's ronmorehead.com. It's simple.
Okay,
One of them.
that's a good. All right. Now that first book, Voices in the Wilderness, when did you write that? And
I think I wrote that in 2012.
2012. Okay. So as far as writing books, you were a late bloomer like me. I just started writing the last 3 years.
Well, I never would have. Al Berry motivated me to write my story because he thought it was pretty unique. I should write it down, but I never written a book before. But it was easy. It was just my chronicle what went on. And, the second one, however, which we'll get into in a minute, but the Quantum Bigfoot, I did a lot of studying on that, which what got me into quantum physics, because what was going on at that camp wasn't just the vocalizations of Bigfoot. It was other things, and mystery things, things you couldn't answer with classical science. So I started looking into it, and Al Berry had a master's degree in science. He says, don't talk about the strange stuff that goes on up here. No one can ask you to talk.
Yeah.
So, but I saw a UFO up there once. I saw, uh, well, we thought a camp was being torn apart one time. And being separated, hauled in, hauled in, taken out of the barrel, going around. Looked out there a few minutes later when it all stopped and nothing had changed. Well, that just doesn't make any sense. How do they do that? They hypnotize us, or can they make those sounds with a vocal mechanism? I don't know.
You mentioned UFO, Ron. A lot of people think that UFOs drop off these Bigfoot, and they drop them off in the wilderness and everything, and then they come and pick them back up when they want to leave. Uh, is there any truth to that? That every time you see a Bigfoot, you might see a UFO nearby, Ron?
I've had reports like that. But also, the Huffington Post in 2012 had an article from 1888 that had the Eureka Times in California. And they said there was a rancher there, and several indigenous people witnessed a small moon coming down and 3 crazy bears jumping out of it. So that might have been first reported sighting of Bigfoot UFO.
Mm.
But a lot of people report UFOs and Bigfoot together. Again, they're not all the same. The different entities from the cosmos come to this planet and mess with the genetics of different species, primates being the that's what I get into a little bit too. But it's really, really interesting how first thing I did when I got out of camp and started looking in the Bible and looking at ancient texts to see where giants came from. Because I was raised religiously, just where are giants? Why are they here now? That's why one guy couldn't go back. This was too spooky. The devil, something like that. So I started looking into it. I went all the way back into Mesopotamia and cuneiform text with the Anunnaki and tried to discover more about the mysteries and how maybe some of them can do what they do. A lot of times you hear a big whooping sound and a whooping sound, but a big whirling sound up above your head in the daytime. You never could see anything. You couldn't find the source of it. One time a guy, he said, one of the things up there, he said that he heard the horses coming down at us. No one heard the horses up there. So just strange stuff, lights, noise, balls of light, things like that happen. So it kind of took me into quantum physics because you have to stay with science and prove what you're saying. Otherwise, my story would just be another story that anybody could tell. But if I didn't have the science behind it, I think I do. You get into quantum physics, you get into everything, energy, frequency, vibration, capitalized frequency on that because you
Now,
find the frequency of anything.
let me read this on your Quantum Bigfoot, and I want to know what you mean by Quantum Bigfoot in order to try and understand the enigmas associated with these giants. And you talked about giants and biblical giants. Uh, they are Nephilim. Maybe you follow up after I get through this. He began to delve into quantum physics for the scientific answers that he and his hunting friends experienced, and as a result, wrote another thought-provoking book, The Quantum Bigfoot. Let's go back to the Bible for a second. Just you was mentioning the giants. Were they the Nephilim that, and maybe the Bigfoot are the Nephilim?
Well, that's two different questions, but they may be a remnant of that. But the Nephilim were the giants that were produced by the crossbreeding of fallen angels, which I call aliens, and breeding human women, and created what they wanted, which was working force. Nephilim, and but that wasn't good enough. And later on, eon, and we're talking about long,
Mhm.
long time ago, not just last couple thousand years,
Right.
hundreds of thousands of years. And I think that humans came after that, but the Anunnaki and the fallen angels, I think, are the same entities. The Anunnaki are mixing with the Nephilim text of the Sumerians. You have to get into that to understand how it correlates with our written uh, Bible. But the Nephilim text is 3400 BC, and it's just markings on tablets, clay tablets, which have dried out now. There's over 10,000 of them. They get into all the stuff that's happening. Powerful ones from the sky came down, and they took human women and what they wanted.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Now the quantum Bigfoot. What do you mean by quantum? Is this? I asked you earlier before the show. Is this a dimensional thing that sometimes people see them jump and they're gone? Is that what you're referring to as a quantum leap?
Well, quantum is a science. It's not a religion. It's a science. And it rises. It's how everything works. Everything worked from the atom all the way through the cosmos, for Dr. Christopher Blair at West Texas A&M. So you got Newtonian physics, which works only in our third dimensional environment. We live in third density here. We're three-dimensional beings, or more than that, but that's what we're living in, third dimensional environment. That's everything you can measure, touch, feel, physical, material, like those things. Measure. Quantum physics goes steady on. That's why Max Planck got a Nobel Prize in 1918 for quantum mechanics, because it kind of gets into the math that establishes there's other things going on. And if you're a religious person, you think when you die, you're going to go to heaven. If you're a physicist, you're going to change form, because energy, which we're all made of, cannot die. That's not what you get around. We're not going to die. You have a good feeling. The body dies, but we're just we're a spiritual entity inside a body.
Right.
This body dies. It's got to learn its lesson in the third dimension environment, or it's going to have to repeat.
Do you
Yeah.
do you think Bigfoot has a soul? They have a soul?
Well, their energies, everything has, yeah.
Uh,
I don't know.
I've heard
But I
that
think they do. This is my opinion.
I've heard that some biomechanical ETs they don't have a soul because they've been produced by other extra.
Well, they're not biological. That's why they're androids.
Right. And
Uh,
so Bigfoot, even the dog has a soul. I mean, a lot of people, years ago when I was younger, they used to say, "Oh, a cat or a dog, they don't have a soul." Well, yeah, they do, because like you said, they're energy.
yeah.
And actually Bigfoot's made up of a lot of energy, apparently, because of infrasound and all this other energies that they put off, and their growls and their grumbles, and they have a tremendous amount of energy. Yeah, I guess you come in contact with them, they'd tear you from limb to limb.
I think
Uh,
they wanted to. Yeah.
yeah. Now, have you heard of that? Have Ron, in your studies, have you heard of anybody being killed by Bigfoot?
Oh, yeah. Up in Portland, Alaska, Discovery Channel flew me up there a couple of years back. And they had an 8-part series on the Alaska killing Bigfoot. And they took me in there the locals wanted to reestablish this village, which they got ran off of in the 1940s, late 1940s.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a matter of record that that's what happened. I lost like 30 different villagers from some giant like Bigfoot monster tearing them apart. And they want to know what could take place to let them reestablish their village so they can start fishing again and do what they were doing. Well, I was there for a couple of days. I assessing it. I flew over in a helicopter and tried to get a lay of it all. My thoughts were, yeah, we probably encroached on their area too much because they weren't just fishing, which by the way, the fishing was fantastic in that area there, and I saw pictures of it. But there's nobody around to really talk to that was a witness to it.
Mhm.
It was 70 years ago.
Wow.
And so the heirs who really owned the property was Portlock, Alaska, was way off in the wilderness there. They wanted to go back. So they were there doing the film shooting. I actually saw where they had really over timbered it years and years earlier. And way over timbered. I mean, it's timbered way back. But new growth was coming up. You can see that wasn't really new then, but it's probably 30, 40 years old compared to the stuff that hadn't been cut. And they were overfishing it, over mining it. We're actually mining it too. So I think if you went into a place and started doing that stuff to it, you're not showing respect for the land. They probably approached on these things as territory too much. And probably if they seen one, they came out and yelled at them, probably shot at it. That's what I'm thinking. Well, and that would have pissed it off, and they would probably just started doing that to people. That's what they were doing. So the whole village abandoned late 1940s. So I was up there, and my recommendation was because they want to know what they do. Great pressure on me, does it?
Yeah.
Yeah, coming back to tear your arms off too bad. No, come back and respect everything. Just respect the lines, respect where things are, and don't overdo it. And you're probably all right, but don't come back with a lot of fear. And that's hard to say to people, but fear is your enemy. And so anyway, that's the case that I know when multiple people were killed at Portlock, Alaska. And these things are normally not aggressive. They're really not supposed to interfere with our environment. All we're supposed to do. I think they're here. And some of them can help, and so it depends on what created them and what kind of genetic manipulation they did to them. Because they do manipulate the advanced beings and manipulate the genome, which is on this planet. Hybridization, and they're doing it today. A lot of hybrids going on right now.
I heard there's been stories that people have shot Bigfoot. There was one who shot one in the chest with a 45 3 or 4 times, saw the fur flying, but all he did was turn around and leaped and he was gone.
Yeah.
Now, do weapons actually have any effect on Bigfoot, Ron?
When they're in our density, yes, they do. But it's like that sounds like the Boone incident happened when Daniel Boone shot one. And he said his son had shot it too, but it didn't kill it. He ran over to it. This is in a book back forward to it. Yeah, solid plate on his chest. His chest was solid. Bullet penetration. The way Daniel Boone killed it was shooting it in the face, in the eye. That killed it. That's another guy, Fred Beck, in 1924. Frank, he shot one straight on and fell off his cliff. They went down and looked into it and it wasn't there. So I think they take care of their own. If they can be heard, they procreate, they eat, they poop, they do everything humans do when they're in our density, our third density environment. When they step out of that, which I think they have the advocacy on the created so they can do that, go out of our visual perception. See, our eyesight has a frequency. We only see within 430, 770 terahertz. That's our frequency. Once the sun goes down, once the lights go out, you don't see anymore. And you can't see until it's not a light source. You can't see energy. And yet, according to Einstein, according to Paul Dirac, who won the Nobel Prize in 1933 for antimatter, that's the direct exchange between matter and energy. Matter and energy are interchangeable. Wow. I mean, matter you can see, like you can see me now, but energy you can't see unless you got special vision. But they established that scientifically, and Hadron Collider in 2012, when they had two atoms, particles collide, form energy. So it does happen. So can they disappear? They go outside of our light's frequency, which is like I've mentioned, the terahertz. You won't see them anymore. And that's when some people see them floating. That's when they're going through the fourth dimension of time. But I think they probably reside in the fifth, perhaps the sixth. I think probably a lot of the UFOs, the aliens have a connection with these things, yes. They're not all the same. I've been all over the world with this stuff. The stories I hear and the pictures and tracks I've seen, they're not the same. I think some of them have been diluted down by indigenous people. They've crossbred with indigenous people and become more human-like. And that means they would have to have 20 chromosomes, which that means that's what they were given when whatever created it. But when I was talking about Bigfoot being created as a workforce, well, we weren't created till later on when they realized they needed something else like them. It says, let us make man in our image. Well, a church will tell you, and I will tell you, well, that means body, soul, and spirit. Well, that could be true. However, maybe it means something more than that. We were given a lot more than we are evolving into yet. We're much more capable than what we are now. I've not learned to walk on water yet, but I'm supposed to be able to, but so are you. So
Yeah.
wouldn't that be great? Well, it'd really be great if I turn water into wine, right? Better.
Yeah. Now, I've heard some stories about, some of these investigations seen on TV that actually you talk about the quantum Bigfoot. They can see them with infrared cameras and also with night vision cameras. Is that true?
That's a heat signature. Yeah, that's the energy signature. That's they turn that off though, they won't see them. I've done that.
The Bigfoot have done that. They turn
A lot of the people have done that. It's got the PC, for flare and I've been out with them on boats and things. We can put these things along the coast.
Mm-hmm.
I went into Canada one time.
Yeah, I was talking to a guest the other night, and I was talking about they make these teepees, like triangle units, like in the woods, and the Bigfoot do, and they make these little sleeping places, I guess. But my theory on this triangle thing is actually it's not natural in the woods. Of course, somebody has to make it, and they're saying Bigfoot makes these triangular type, uh, buildings, little they're just sticks or tree limbs or whatever stuck together. I think they're actually a signal for the UFOs when they come over. They can see a different type of structure, and that structure is what the Bigfoot puts together to be picked up at that point, or to be they were dropped off at that point, and they come back and pick them up because of course the UFOs have a lot more science than we do and technology, so they can see these little buildings, the little triangular buildings, and they can recognize, well, that's a pickup point, and that's where they pick the Bigfoot up. Could that be possible, Ron?
Well, anything's possible, but I don't know for that one. Unless you see what made the structure, you don't know what made. I've been Boy Scouts, I've been 100 blind. It could have been anything. A lot of people want to put that on Bigfoot because they say nobody comes back there. Well, people do come back there. They're back there, other than up in there too. What you're saying could be true, but I can't say that I think because I've never found those structures up there. But we weren't looking for structures. Or it's there, yeah.
Yeah,
Plus, if they could sense that, they could sense where the creatures are and just pick them up that way. You would have to find a structure
yeah.
like that.
Yeah, well, UFOs and ETs can pick up each one of our frequencies and know exactly where we're at. So they're that forehead and technology that I imagine they just come over and scan. But it was just a thought that I thought I'd throw out there. I was thinking of that. Why do they make these little teepee things, and who really makes them? Like you said, it could be kids, Boy Scouts, or anybody do that stuff. Go out there and have a little fun and build these little buildings. But I just thought, well, maybe it was a question I should ask Bigfoot researchers to see what they thought, if that could be a signal or some kind of structural signal or symbol that the UFOs and ETs come by and pick them up there. Uh, and you said maybe not. There's other things.
Well, in my opinion, it's just my opinion. I don't think so, but that's because I think they can find them without having a structure like that.
Yeah.
They could be honey blind. It's easy to either an answer to a hunting blind or a place for shelter. People get out of weather or something.
Okay.
Or it could have been a birthing place too.
Mhm. Uh, I I have seen, a lot of these camera and video shots. You see these Bigfoot moving real quick through the trees or in between the trees, and that's all you see. And then sometimes you see a face that could be tree limbs, that developed that face. We don't know. But a lot of these films that are out there, do you think they're real or do you think they're computer generated, Ron?
I think some of them are real, but some of them are probably not. I mean, most of them are not. But most of them are just a blur, like you said. No, I think probably there's some pretty good shots out there. The Patterson film, I believe, is real, and a couple others I've seen, I think are valid. That's my opinion too. Unless you're there and know the surrounding, know all the context of everything, you don't really know. Unless you see what built the structure you're talking about, you don't know what built the
Mm.
structure. That's the thing about the samurai car that I recorded in 1974. I saw it that night. But you need to see what made the sounds. And a lot of people say, well, if you don't see it, you don't know. Saw it.
Okay, can they be invisible? That's another question I wanted to ask, Ron. Can they go
Well,
invisible?
just like I mentioned earlier, if they go out of your perception, they go out of the light frequency, they would appear to not appear. And I've heard a lot of people, very credible people, not a lot, but several, say that they saw them cloaking, which means the visualization as a predator, they call it the predator effect. It's kind of something you can see through, it's the visualization.
Mhm.
I think that's them going through the fourth dimension of time. That's where a lot of people see ghosts to
Right.
souls that have not chose where to come back and how to come back into this environment to learn what they didn't learn the first time, or second time, or third time. But I believe in multiple embodiments, which I didn't want to raise that way. But the only way you're ever going to get out of this third density that we're in is to learn love and compassion and how to treat other people with situations. And don't be a victim of anything. Just be a responsible person who cares for other people. And that's what I think it takes to get out of this third dimension. And you raise your personal frequency high enough to get into the
Yes.
dimension where we're all made in the image of the Anunnaki, which
Oh, yeah.
there's millions of billions. Undoubtedly count them. Can't even count the number of them, how many there are, but they're not all bad, just the ones that chose to fall down in our density to do what they did.
Now,
Humanity.
now, Bigfoot was here probably before we were, maybe
Yes.
thousands and thousands of years. And somehow or another, either an intelligent race or they themselves could be, you think they can be really, technologically sharp or intelligent, the Bigfoot, Ron?
Yes. They know things about how we are and how they are. They understand that. But we have all the abilities I think they have. We have not evolved into them. We've not reached our ultimate goal yet. You can evolve your frequency on up to the sixth dimension here while you're at the body
Mm-hmm.
or you pass on. And but our destiny is into the ninth dimension, the shining ones. Satan in the Bible is called the shining one.
Right.
And these beings from cosmos that came down to the powerful one were shining. So you want to call them Palladians. I don't know what they call themselves, but it's interesting to study it because you get into cuneiform text, and that's where you really find out how things happen. Just about all written languages have a core goes back into that cuneiform text.
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of interesting to know.
Now, upon writing the book, The Quantum Bigfoot, you started off, of course, a lot of research, went through this. What's the bottom line for quantum Bigfoot? What exactly does that mean? And what was your final, opinion in your investigation after doing that book, Ron?
Well, I'm trying to, some people out there say they're nothing but flesh and blood. That's it. Well, nothing's just flesh and blood. I had to get into the etherical part of what we are as humans because what we encounter up there is part human. So they've been here longer than us, they probably evolved a lot more than us. And they know what we're supposed to know. And they some try to teach us that and some don't want us to know.
Mhm.
There's warring factions on this planet right now. We're in we're a warring species, thanks to the Anunnaki that were here and what they planted on this planet. And that's why we're all at war so much. There will be peace someday. And
Yeah, hopefully. Yeah, we can't even get ourselves together right now. We got so much trouble out there, and this is just for entertainment purposes only. We got political problems. We got international problems with people fighting wars. Europe is rioting, and Australia, and of course we have our share of problems right now. It's been a very it's just been a very active last 2 or 3 weeks, in our country. Do you think Bigfoot realizes what the human race is into right now and what they're doing? You think they think about us and how they're afraid of us because we might be in a war? And uh do they you ever
yeah,
think that they have that kind of a thinking, Ron?
well, they know what we're doing, and they don't want us to be at war. They're good ones that are trying to help us. Uh, but there are different types out there. They know what mess with what and how they get in it. Uh, the reason I want to finish answering that one question. I wrote the book so that I could bring science and spirituality together. We're all spiritual beings, and we need to know who we are as spiritual beings. Bigfoot's a spiritual being too, and I have no doubt that they have a reason for being here. It's not what a lot of people think. While we're out there to kind of hunt them, but we never thought about shooting them unless they started attacking us or doing something at us. They sounded like they might one time, but we got through that. We didn't have to shoot at them. They kind of figured they were safe with us, I guess. But
What
it's
I was going to ask you, Ron, what would be the protocol to defend yourself against the Bigfoot? A lot of times they will approach people within 10, 15 feet and just stand there and stare at them. And of
yeah.
course, the human is frozen, scared. But if they attack, what when do you it's like a military question, and I've been in the
Well,
military. It's like, when do you use a weapon on a Bigfoot to defend yourself, Ron?
well, if you think they're going to hurt you, and the thing is, fear is going to be your enemy. You fear them, they eat on that. Eat on that. The dog man.
Hmm.
Uh, they feed on fear. And I think whatever you fear the most will come upon you. So I encourage people to try to control your fear about anything. Don't be afraid of anything, because know who you are as a human being. They're very high frequential beings. And once you know who you are and know how valuable you are to the cosmos, you're going to be okay. You're not going to call in something like that uh, in your mind because you're not thinking something like that. You attract what you think about most. And yeah, if we were attacked up there, we would have shot. Yeah, but again, we didn't feel like that. Our hearts didn't. I get into that in my book too.
Hmm.
Heart, brain, coherence. That's very important.
Yeah.
Our brain's been so conditioned from the time of birth. We all have this is wrong and this is right. This is wrong. It's all in condition. But our heart has not been conditioned. It's open. It's a gut feeling that we get. You get that from your pineal gland, which is open to the universe. That's such an antenna up there to get into to us and the species. That talks to the heart. Gives you that gut feeling. Don't go that way, go that way. It's good. Go. Learn to obey the heart feeling, because your heart will talk to the brain up here, and your brain will talk you out of that because it doesn't make sense when you have that condition in those circumstances. I
Hmm.
think your brain has to get out of that box. It has to understand that there's more going on. That's what I encourage all researchers, especially to do. Anybody's out in the woods tromping around out there, beating on trees or whatever you're going to do. First of all, control your fear and don't underestimate, because you can underestimate them and
Yeah.
maybe a bad one out there, you don't know.
Right.
But most people will feel it. You'll feel it in your heart. And that's what meditation is all about, getting your chakras lined up so that your heart and your brain are in coherence. You start listening to your heart, start doing what your heart says. That will lead you in everything that's right.
Hmm. I've watched a lot of these investigators in these groups on TV hunting Bigfoot and everything else, and I had a name for these one group of guys. Uh, they're kind of like hillbillies, and I called them fat guys with guns. And they would chase Bigfoot, and that when they found one, they got scared. And I've seen other shows like that too. They'd go out, hunting for these Bigfoot, and as soon as they hear one, they run like little girls. I mean, what kind of investigation is that, Ron?
Exactly. Yeah, it's all production.
Uh,
I'm in a lot of production crews, and they're after a certain narrative they got to portray, and that's what the network or whatever is going to take their production and run with it. They want us and said, bring us this group of guys, hippies that will do this, that, and the other.
mhm.
So that's what they got to produce. They might film me for a long time and only come up with what they want for their narrative.
In your estimation, how big are these Bigfoot? A lot of people describe them being 7 feet, 8 feet, 9 feet, even 10 feet tall, and weighing somewhere around a neighborhood of 600 pounds. Uh, what is the average size of a huge Bigfoot, Ron?
Well, that's a good question, but it's so subjective what I call big. I'm sure the babies are small,
Right.
and the giants are big. They're up to 12 foot tall, possibly bigger than that. One of our tracks, the trackways we followed up there one time. I hadn't seen this myself. I don't know that I would have believed it. It was 25 and a half inches long. It wasn't running. We followed it to it went off the area we could get to. And trying to run across that myself, I wouldn't have, that's got to be 12 feet tall, 13 feet between the strides. Now, the normal one was run on, never found that one around the camp. That was up on the ridge. But a normal one around the camp was around 18, 19 inches. And that would have been 8 to 10 foot tall.
Mhm. Yeah.
So the average, I think, height is up center the Patterson numbers. I think they figure that out with 7 foot, 3.5 inches, something like that. And probably weigh several hundreds of pounds with their muscle mass. And muscles are, and my daughter seen one up there at camp one time. It was 7 foot tall. And anyway, it's probably younger one she thought it was when she
Yeah.
saw.
The
So
Patterson film that looked like a female.
it
Uh,
was, yeah, it
yeah.
was. There's also, I think, a diluted female. I think it's crossbred with indigenous people. That's why the track looks so humanoid. It looks like it's like a human track. Paper toes, arch foot, all that stuff. I just think that that's probably one of the ones that we didn't have up there. What we had up there had no arch foot. Just a real triangular, almost triangular, with 5 big toes right there. Same consistency with them. They went a little one. We found a 9 inch track in the snow one time up there alongside an 18 inch track. And that told us it was an adolescent involved. I think when there's an adolescent involved in these things, they're in a 3 dimensional environment and they have the babies, they have to raise them in that environment. Learn how to get along with humans, how to trick them and do what they do. They play with you. You say to mess with you. That eat you one other.
Yeah. Now, I want to get into a question about this is for entertainment purposes only. I asked you this question, Ron. Do you think I've heard that the military has captured Bigfoot and they've captured several of them and they actually protect them? And people say that they come in an area where Bigfoot has been spotted and they tell people to leave them alone or whatever, or you didn't see nothing, or they tell them that you didn't see anything. So,
Right.
do you think the military or authorities are involved in this Bigfoot thing, Ron?
And they certainly know about it. You know,
Yeah.
but yeah. Episode 515 on Sasquatch Chronicles, an interview with a lady from England, from English actually. She was out there. She saw 5 of them along the beach when she was out there. She took a picture of the sunset. She's sitting on a rock, like 5 of them walked by, male, 2 female, 2 adolescents. And they went out in the water and started pulling up seaweed and throwing back the females, and they were doing something with it. A lot, but she couldn't believe it. She had no idea something like that existed. And she pulled the cover. She no one could believe any picture of this. So she pulled the cover off her lens and fell on the rocks. And then everyone heard that from out of the water. He comes storming out of the water and they were running, screaming at her. And the female, she said, stop. And she passed out about that time. She don't know how she got drug up. She tried to drug up with the car. And she was quite jarred up by that. I talked to her personally, and she's quite credible. And she even drew me a picture. She said when he screamed, his neck bulged out, and like had air sacs or something there. And that goes right along with the howl of the whole thing. They had air sacs. Screamed through the sound, but by the way, actually Dr. Miller suggested that 2 years ago that maybe these things had air sacs. And
Mhm.
supposedly we have remnants of air sacs. And we don't.
Yeah. You mentioned the woman involved in this case. I also heard that if you want to attract a Bigfoot in a group, and you got 3 or 4 guys, always have a lady with you because Bigfoot are attracted to the ladies. Is that true? And have they kidnapped women or kids before?
Well, I've heard stories that they have, and yeah, and I know they've been attracted to my daughter, lovely daughter, and she that they would think quite a bit, but also they won't infringe on me. I think they respect us, the ones we're dealing with up there. See our family. But my daughter's had interference in her, you know, seen them. He's had them. Well, it's her story. I already tell it, but it's interesting. I think a lot. We don't generally take females up there, except I took my daughter up there. And
Mhm.
that was years later. I could already encountered the same thing. Uh, I think they. I had a back up to the hunting group. I called us up for inspection. They said they've been seeing them. And a lot of times it's the females that the younger ones want to attract because they like to crossbreed. They do want to do that. So yeah, I think that's something. I wouldn't take a female with me. Just know when you liked.
I come through British Columbia. I think it was in Canada when I was coming back home several years ago from Alaska, and I saw a sign, and which was a little scary. And I think you probably saw too. It was in Indian reservation territory up there in those areas, and I saw the sign. It says, "Please do not get out and stop your car, and don't go walking around because." Native American, not American, but Native Indian women have disappeared in this area quite a bit. That was scary. I thought, okay, we don't get out of the car, we don't stop. You know, I couldn't believe I saw that sign on the side of the road because there has been missing Native people up there and mostly women. They said they were missing. So could this be some, I guess, backwoods guy that's a criminal, or could this be a Bigfoot that takes interest in kidnapping women and kids? Like I said earlier, do you think a lot of these disappearances in the woods or forest could be attributed to the Bigfoot phenomenon?
uh, Not so much. You don't know. We're only guessing here. And you just don't know. There's a lot of stories about from Native Americans that say they took their women,
Yeah.
and that's why I did my cross reading. That's why I did some of the sanders hybrids. They've been breeding, crossbreeding with indigenous people and became more human-like. So some of them may not be able to do what others can do. They may not be able to. They've lost some of their Bigfoot attributes, I should say. Yeah.
So their
But
their DNA, talking about quantum, their
yeah,
DNA is much differently structured than ours. Do they really have a real good DNA sample of a Bigfoot, Ron?
well, supposedly there's been a couple, but they've been down through thumbs down by academia because they had a human component to them. They said, well, they had to be contaminated. Melvin Ketchum was one of them. She said that they have a human mitochondrial DNA. And so the scientific community said, no, no, it can't be. It's got to be contaminated. You contaminated. Well, she just took the blunt of that because she could be redeemed one of these days, because they do have a human component. And then there we had the geneticists, which was a geographical team up in the Himalayas above Bhutan. And they ran across tracks, bipedal tracks. at 17,000 feet in snow and ice there, took eDNA out of it. And she came back a year later and said it had human on in the mitochondrial. But the secret is what's the nuclear DNA, that's the male counterpart. And get into that, and that's where application. She said they have to get alien. You mentioned aliens back in case when she had heard you. They're not into believing that, they can't do that. Academia is made up in their own parameters.
Right.
They condemn themselves by their own structure. And so regular science based on Newtonian physics is never going to answer the questions that are out there, how they do what they do. And they do a lot of strange stuff. And that's because they have abilities that we don't understand. It's in the quantum realm of the world. And we're all under the quantum field of laws. But we live under the Newtonian field. And that's what we're raised.
Right. The Bigfoot, they have control of the forest and where they're at. And they could hide from us and run from us and probably go around us and scare us at a distance. And they have complete control. They're very intelligent from what I understand. Could it possibly be that these beings or these Bigfoot, Ron, are more intelligent than us humans outside of the forestry thing?
I think so. My opinion, but we tried to trick them. I mean, we were up there from year to year trying to trick these things. Set up camera traps, did all kinds of things. We couldn't trick them. They set up camera traps, they go around it or bust the camera off or something like that. Like they knew what we were doing. But they don't want to be exposed. Nothing's supposed to interfere with our choices in life. That's what gets us out of this life. Proper choices.
I imagine they can smell electronics and they can smell cameras and they can smell guns. I guess they know when you have a weapon on you too. When you come in the forest, they'll know that just by the scent. You think they can tell about that, Ron?
Not from the scent. They're primates, and their olfactory sense is probably that of a primate. It's not like a bear, unless they've been doing that. But I don't think so. I mean, we had guns all the time up there, high power guns, go without them. But you don't know what you're dealing with at the time. This was in the 70s, and nothing's happened since since 2011. I was up there, and then 2016 we had something happen. David Paulides went up there, filming man in 2018, and filmed my hearing up there at the camp. But yeah, they are. I think they're more tuned in than they're supposed to be. Like we're supposed to. We used to plant gardens. We used to eat our own food. Now we have to go to the grocery store and buy genetically modified food. And unless you're looking for it. And that all that stuff, the water we drink, everything works on your pineal gland. Your pineal gland is your third eye, or Egyptians. And that's in there. It's in everybody's skull, right in the middle. That's our receptor. Right? And we calcify it with our diet. And if you want to decalcify, the way to do that is start eating better, don't drink anything with fluoride and fluoride would be sulfur. It's surrounded by a little crystalline substance, and that gives up energy.
Right.
Anyway.
Yeah, you have Ron, you said you now reside with your partner Carrie in North Carolina. You've traveled from Alaska to Patagonia and the North America to Siberia in search of the truth to how these beings are able to stay hidden from classical sciences like radar. And I just mentioned that they can hide from us and they know the wilderness. You've been all over the place. Now, Patagonia is now that I should know where that's at. Patagonia, where is that at, Ron?
South America.
South America. That's right. That's right.
I was a safety diver down there. I'm a scuba diver too. So I can get a pilot.
Now, after being in all these places, where is the most action of Bigfoot that you've ever encountered in all the locations I just named off that you have, Ron?
The Sierra Camp.
Really?
That's where everything was happening. That's why we're talking here today. The data that we collected there, the Valverde collected, that we all that studied, looked at, no one can debunk it because it's real.
Okay.
So that's been the, I mean, I had a lot of adventures. I've been all over the world, but really, I had a very fortunate life. And, a lot of things. So I wrote about some of it, but biggest thing, I spoke to the Darwin Museum in Moscow, had dinner with the senators actually, and they took us into Siberia, a couple thousand miles away, way in the wilderness. That was fun. Looking for the wild man, because they said it's a cave back there. But didn't see anything, but there's a lot of people back there have seen things,
Mm-hmm.
they say.
Let's let's I guess sum this up, and you still resolve to dig deeper for answers, and you produced another book, Bigfoot Unveiled. Could you tell us a little bit about that, Ron, before we jump off the show?
Yeah.
There's
Kind of a spin-off of what I've been talking about.
okay, that's all right.
Quantum Bigfoot, it's deeper, gets into AI, artificial intelligence, it gets into uh, oh, Tesla, manifestation code 369, which I've had my theory about that one. And it gets into hybridization, the hybridization program going on about aliens. And, Tolkien talks about how they do that. Light and sound, how important sound is. Light, sound that the 49 copies will turn into light.
Mhm. Yeah,
Interesting.
yeah. I
Uh,
I guess
anyway,
the Bigfoot Unveiled. Where does it start? Since I didn't get the synopsis, where does that book start and where does it end in with your, I guess, opinion or your final investigative theory? Ron?
well, it starts off with, first of all, David Galati is a missing 401 man who wrote all those. He wrote the forward for me, a good friend of mine. And Christopher Murphy, he wrote something that he went, how he believed in quantum theory. Well, you got to believe in quantum, it's a fact.
Mhm.
That's all. But what that led me to, there's more questions still to be answered. And question can't be answered unless it wouldn't be a question of what an answer to it. There's an answer to everything.
Right.
I
What?
think you understand, but yeah, dig deeper.
Yeah. Do you work with any academia groups or
Oh,
colleagues?
I've spoken with them a lot. There have been conventions and things. But I don't work with them. I'm way out there. Well, I won't say league, but they won't get into what I did because they're all the condition and their parameters of science.
Yeah, they have to kind of stick to strict guidelines, and until they have a body, they're not going to believe it. I guess that's
Well, even then, that's their guidelines. They got a body, so now they can work with it. But they won't get into the ethereal part of the spirit. I'll think everything is like Tesla said, well, one man calls God, another one calls the laws of physics. So you
Mm,
gotta understand that there's more going on than what you see. There's more dimensions out there than the third that we live in. There's all these other dimensions that are out there.
yeah,
If you don't understand that, don't look and study it, you're never gonna find out anything else. I feel badly for these researchers that won't even look into that because they think that's just a flesh and blood animal. Maybe some of them just turn into that because of the crossbreeding. It's flesh and blood, but I kind of doubt that because why? And there's a reason for that too. I think they go underground really, or they lift it up in a chariot.
okay. I guess we're going to close the show out on the last book that we wanted to talk about, and I I like getting involved in Bigfoot, and I'm an ET UFO specialist, I guess you can call it, because I've had experiences, but I like Bigfoot. I like the cryptid scenes. I like Skinwalker Ranch. I'm into all this paranormal things because there's paranormal that happens all the time. I'm sure you've had some paranormal things happen to you, like airports, things that could show up in places where they're not supposed to be.
Well, they
And
say something about paranormal and woo factor and all that. All the paranormal is the same we haven't learned how it works yet. Seems paranormal to us because it's not normal. Quantum physics, the laws of quantum physics will answer a lot of the questions that are involved in the paranormal factor. So that's what I like to say because quantum physics is a science. It's not just some woo out there, paranormal thing, but it answers a lot of the questions that are there.
mhm,
So I encourage anybody to look into it. It's not something you can't get your head around. You can get your head around. You just got to realize there's no end to the universe. How big is it? You might know. You
yeah,
might know how far it is. If everything's measurable, like attorney says, well, how far do you think?
Yeah.
The answer,
All right.
stuff like that.
I guess we'll end the show on that. Ron Morehead, thank you so much for coming on the show. And I guess next time we talk, we'll get some, I'll get some pictures that you might have, and we can show those, or sometime when you get some time. I know you're a very busy guy, right? From my notes that I've
Well, I do a lot of stuff.
yeah. Okay. You got to keep busy nowadays, I tell you. Uh, I want to thank you very much, Ron Morehead.
Thank you,
This has
Dave. I
been,
appreciate it.
this is
And
the,
thank you, and let everybody understand who they are as humans and what kind of potential we have and what our destiny is.
yeah, I will post your books and also your website on a narrative on the video, and I'll get that out in 2 or 3 days. I have to wait for another video to shine out a little while, and then I put another one in, and because I want that show to have some eyes on it and get the clicks and the views.
How about Heidi? Heidi?
What's that?
Heidi?
Heidi, yeah, she was,
Yeah, I watched that.
yeah, she was
Very pleasant.
a very very uplifting person, very.
Right on target.
Yeah. But yeah, she's a lot of people liked her because of her attitude and some of the things that she's been through. But yeah, this year too, big people are interested in Bigfoot. They're interested in all of this. And I want to thank everybody for listening to the show. Ron Morehead, this has been Dave Emmons and A Strange Reality. Thank you, and hope you enjoy the show, and make some notes. So maybe make some comments and ask Ron questions, and I'm sure he'll get back with it, and I'll let him know.
Yeah, they can reach me through my website.
Yeah, and you can reach him through his website, in which I'll have in a narrative. Thank you so much, Ron, and good night.
Thank you, Dave.
Thank you, and good night, everybody.